Dear community members, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We pray that everyone is safe and healthy, and those that are suffering in any way, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ease your pain. My name is Yasmin, and I'll be your host for the night. So, seeing that Ramadan is just around the corner, today, inshallah, we will have three wonderful speakers to help us prepare. We have Dr. Nader Khan, who will give us tips about health and how to prepare spiritually. Sana Rana, who will help us prepare on how to get our children involved and excited about Ramadan. And Nida Ghazanfar, a dietitian, who will give us tips on how to stay healthy with what we eat in our iftars and meals. Before we begin, we will start with the recitation of the Quran, which will be done by Abdullah Al-Miski. He will be reading from Surah Al-Baqarah with English translation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. O you who have believed, decreed upon you is fasting, as it was decreed upon those before you, that you may become righteous. Fasting for a limited number of days, so whoever among you is ill or on a journey during them, then an equal number of days are to be made up, and upon those who are able to fast but with hardship, a ransom as substitute of feeding a poor person each day, and whoever volunteers excess, it is better for him, but to fast is the best for you, if you only knew. The month of Ramadan is that in which was revealed the Quran, a guidance for the people and clear proofs of guidance and criterion. So whoever sights the new moon of the last month, let him fast it, and whoever is ill or on a journey, then an equal number of the other days. Allah intends for you ease and does not intend for you hardship, and wants for you to complete the period and to glorify Allah for that to which He has guided you, and perhaps you will be grateful. And when my servants asks you, O Muhammad, concerning me, I am near. I respond to the invocation and supplicant when he calls upon me. So let them respond to me by obedience and believe in me, that may be rightly guided. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.
MashaAllah. Thank you, Abdullah, for that beautiful recitation. Before we begin our official program, there are some MIA announcements I would like to highlight. So just to start off, we have the Masjid al-Aqsa drawing competition. So the Masjid al-Aqsa drawing competition has ended. MashaAllah, we got over 50 entries. The judges are in the process of scoring, and we will have the results the next virtual mosque community update on April 11th at 7 p.m. inshallah. So tune in then to see the winner. We have a parenting workshop with Sheikh Yasir Fazaga, who is an imam and social worker from the US. He will be teaching an approach that is Islamically principled and culturally relevant to provide parents and caregivers with the best practices to protect and prepare their children to survive and thrive in this society. You must register for this event. It's a 4-week course starting the first week of April. The first session starts tomorrow, so please sign up as soon as possible. We also have a community check-in, which will be Sunday, April 11th at 7 p.m. The MIA board members will give updates on everything Ramadan related, Taraweeh, food hampers, iftar programs, Eid plans, and more. You can join via Zoom or Facebook Live. The Convert Committee is hosting a workshop titled Making the Most Out of Ramadan as a New Muslim on Saturday, April 3rd with presenter Sheikh Ammar Khatib. This is a private event for converts. Registration is required. Please visit the MIA website for more information. Manitoba Muslim Seniors Association is also hosting a workshop for seniors titled Mental Health During the Pandemic on Saturday, April 3rd at 6 p.m. with social worker Sophia Ali. This will be over Zoom and Facebook Live. And finally, we have an event specifically for youth with esteemed speaker Mufti Abdul Wahab from Michigan. He will be speaking to the youth about being able to balance everything from school to friends, family, fun, and Islam. This will take place on Wednesday, April 7th at 7 p.m. via Zoom and Facebook. We will now begin with tonight's program, inshallah. If you have any questions throughout the presentations, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will try to address them all at the end of the presentation. So our first speaker today is Dr. Nazir Khan. Dr. Nazir Khan is the president of Yaqeen Canada and the director of research strategy at Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research. He is a neuroradiologist and assistant professor at McMaster University. He has also served as an imam for many years and has memorized the Quran and received traditional certification, ijaza, in the study of the Quran, hadith, and Islamic theology from various scholars across North America. His expertise in both medical sciences and Islamic theology uniquely positions him to address challenging contemporary questions regarding faith, reason, and science. So today he'll help us prepare spiritually and give us some medically related tips on how to get ready for Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. I pray that everyone is in the best state of health and iman. Thank you for inviting me to speak and to connect with you all over this virtual platform. Although we very much aspire to get together in person once more, inshallah ta'ala, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to make the best use of this. As Ramadan is rapidly approaching, many of us are reflecting on how we can best prepare for Ramadan. And this is now the second Ramadan that we are experiencing during the pandemic. Last year, it caught us by surprise. It happened shortly after the pandemic started. We didn't know what the situation was going to be like in Ramadan. We didn't know what activities would be like in Ramadan. We didn't know what the experience of Ramadan would be like without the community activities. I mean, in our deen, congregational prayers are such an important part of our faith. Feeling a part of our community is an important part of our spirituality. So that was something that took us by surprise last year, and it was something we were unprepared for. But now that we're approaching the second Ramadan in this pandemic, we're hoping to be more intentional about it and ask, okay, what is the best that we can do with the current situation? Many of us who are experiencing a Ramadan that is more private, it's more disconnected, more isolated. How can we still capitalize on this opportunity and achieve the spiritual benefits of Ramadan? That's one of the questions that we're asking ourselves. Particularly during this time where there's so many other stressors in life, right? The pandemic has been very difficult on everyone. It's caused a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty, and it's really created a lot of chaos in society and in our lives. So how do we make the best use of Ramadan in spite of all this change that's happening around us? That's the question that confronts us. And in order to answer that question, we need to go back and revisit the purpose behind Ramadan. We need to go back and revisit what is the reason behind our fasting. What is the reason behind this blessed month of Ramadan? And we all heard the verses that were beautifully recited by our young Qari at the beginning of this program. The verses from Surah Al-Baqarah that describe the virtues of fasting. And in these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us three things, right? The first is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may attain taqwa. So taqwa is that spiritual connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Taqwa is seeking nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and achieving that closeness in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and having true piety. So how do we acquire that during the process of Ramadan? The other thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah is شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. This is the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed. Why was the Quran revealed? هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. A guidance for humanity. A source of clear proofs, a source of clarification of guidance and a criterion between right and wrong. So how do we take the Quran as a source of guidance? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. That you may complete this month of fasting and you may glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so that you may achieve gratitude. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. So these are three goals that we can extract from this Quranic passage about Ramadan. The coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through building this concept of taqwa in our lives, rebuilding our relationship with the divine revelation, with the Holy Quran. And number three is developing a sense of shukr, of gratitude in our lives. Now, in order to reflect on these things, the first thing we should really reflect on is the fact that the human being is not just a body, but a body and a soul. And throughout the year, we pay attention to the body, but we tend to neglect the soul. We pay attention to the needs of the body, acquiring food for the body, acquiring material possessions to provide a shelter and comfort and luxuries for the body. But what about our soul? What are the provisions of the soul? The human body is the vehicle, it's the vessel, but our true essence is our soul, created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is going to provide that nourishment for the soul? Just as God has sent down provisions to the earth, the rain that brings up crops and nourishes the animals on this earth and provides sustenance for human beings, similarly God has sent down divine revelation that provides sustenance for the soul. And that is the message of the Quran and the remembrance of God, the dhikr. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Verily, it is in the remembrance of God that hearts find rest. So during this month, in order to achieve taqwa, we want to revisit and actualize the spiritual benefits of Ramadan. We want to revisit and understand what is our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that begins with introspection, asking ourselves, where am I right now in my relationship with God? What is the importance that I give to my relationship with God in my life currently? And how can I improve that? How can I develop that further? Where can I go further? How can I nourish positive qualities in my life and remove bad qualities? Because that's one of the aspects of taqwa. It comes from the Arabic word wiqaya, to seek protection. We want to protect ourselves from anything which is going to create distance between us and God Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So developing taqwa is that fundamental message of Ramadan. And that's why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he mentioned, رُبَّ صَائِمْ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَرُبَّ قَائِمْ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ قِيَامِهِ إِلَّا السَّهَرُ. It may be that somebody fasts the entire day, but they get nothing out of it except for hunger. And it may be that somebody prays the night in Ramadan and they get nothing out of it except for lack of sleep. So we don't want to be in that situation where we're going through rituals of the body, but we're not achieving the spiritual benefits of that. And what would be one of the reasons why we're not achieving the spiritual benefits is if we're just going through the hunger of the body, but we're not actually focused on developing our soul, on performing increased acts of worship, on remembering our relationship with Allah, on truly seeking forgiveness for our shortcomings in our lives and trying to improve ourselves and inculcate within ourselves positive qualities. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Man lam yad'a qawla zuri wal amala bihi, falaysa lillahi hajatan fi an yad'a ta'amahu wa sharaba." Whoever doesn't leave off bad speech, foul speech, or acting wrongly, then God has no need of that person leaving off food and drink. So the spiritual connection has to be there in order for us to achieve the fruits of our Ramadan. In order for us to achieve the fruits of our fasting and our prayers, we need to focus on bringing our hearts closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on filling our hearts with the love of Allah and His Messenger. So to that extent, we need to focus on revisiting our relationship with the Quran, reflecting on the message of the Quran, right? Connecting with the verses of the Quran and asking, how can I actualize these lessons in my life? Listening to reminders that will emotionally impact us and allow us to seek out that nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are some of the things that we can do. And finally, developing our concept of gratitude in our lives, developing shukr. So it's interesting because there's been a lot of research about the importance of gratitude in psychology. The University of California in Berkeley, they did a very extensive research on the psychological benefits of gratitude. And one of the things that they found is that those people who practice gratitude regularly in their lives, they achieve numerous health benefits. They have stress reduction. Kids who practice gratitude regularly are able to achieve higher scores in school. They're less likely to start smoking. There's all of this plethora of benefits that come about through practicing gratitude in our lives. And that's one of the core messages of Ramadan is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you may achieve gratitude. When we take that first bite of food food, at the end of our day, we are reminded of the blessings that God provides for us at all times. And especially during this time of the pandemic, we recognize there's so much uncertainty in this world. There's so many people who are going through so much suffering, and we pray that Allah alleviates their suffering. We really can't take any blessing for granted. We need to recognize that our blessings are gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we need to come closer to Him and experience that gratefulness and thankfulness to Him. Now, in addition to the spiritual benefits of Ramadan, there are also many benefits in a medical sense, from a health perspective. And as a medical doctor who's seeing patients, who's interested in these aspects, the biological effects of fasting are also very interesting. We know that there's a tremendous amount of discussion of the role that intermittent fasting has on reducing insulin resistance. So, as we fast during the month of Ramadan, if we fast according to the sunnah, according to the prophetic manner, that means we avoid binging at night, overeating at night, stuffing ourselves at night, but we fast the proper way during the day, and then at night we have a small meal. We can achieve many of these medical benefits. We can reduce our risk of diabetes. We can achieve many cardiovascular benefits, many benefits in terms of reducing our risk of hypertension, high blood pressure. In addition to that, there's been a lot of interesting research done recently on how fasting, and Ramadan in particular, actually changes the bacteria that live within the human intestine. So we have good bacteria, the gut microbiome. It's, you have about 10 trillion to 100 trillion of these good bacteria living within you, and they have a positive role in terms of your immune system, right? And many other benefits for the human body. And what happens is Ramadan can actually increase various strains of these good bacteria within us when we perform fasting. And finally, as a neuroradiologist, a clinical neuroscientist, one of the things that I find very interesting is the positive impact that fasting can have in reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So we know that the impact of fasting on the brain is something that has an important role in reducing amyloid protein deposition in the brain, because of the shift to using more ketone bodies that are produced in the body during the fast. And as a result of that, if we shift our diet and we engage in fasting, there's a positive impact that we can have on our brain, and actually have a reduced risk of Alzheimer's. And that risk reduction can happen early on in your life. It can happen as early as in your 30s, for example. So the changes that we're making in our life now are going to have positive impacts for us and positive ramifications throughout the rest of our life. Now, what about somebody who is unable to fast during the month of Ramadan? What is their experience during the month of Ramadan going to be like if they're unable to fast? So, for example, many people have medical conditions where they may not be able to fast. A friend I was speaking to who has type 1 diabetes was telling me about his experience, and how often people with medical conditions, they may feel like they're excluded because there's so much focus purely on fasting. But as we mentioned at the beginning of the program, the importance is on reconnecting ourselves with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and fasting is an important vehicle to do that. But for those who are unable to fast, it doesn't mean there's no Ramadan for them. They can focus on rebuilding their taqwa, their connection with the Quran, on increasing their gratitude. All of those same spiritual benefits are still there, even for those who are unable to fast. So it's very important, if somebody has a medical condition, they consult with their family physician, with their primary care provider, and they understand what are their risks, before undertaking fasting or withholding them medications from themselves, for instance. So those are some of the important medical considerations that we need to reflect on for fasting. And if we go into this month of Ramadan and we have a positive attitude, and we have clear goals set for ourselves, that after the month of Ramadan, this is what I want to achieve for myself. How do I want to be a different human being after the month of Ramadan than I was when the month of Ramadan started? In psychology, they talk about how one of the most important factors in achieving positive growth and change is implementation intention. An implementation intention is, you plan out exactly what you're going to do in terms of building a positive habit. So you say, at this time, right, when Fajr time starts, I'm going to begin my fast. I'm going to go throughout the day. I'm going to avoid any haram actions, any acts of sin. I'm going to avoid getting into arguments with others. I'm going to avoid foul speech. I'm going to focus on reflecting more on the message of the Quran. I'm going to focus more on developing myself spiritually. You make that intention at the start of your day, and you achieve those fruits throughout the day. So I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify our hearts and enable us to achieve the benefits of Ramadan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for our shortcomings. Ameen. Jazakumullah khairan.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Our next speaker is Sana Rana. She's a middle school EAL teacher who has been teaching for 12 years. She has a master's in education with a focus on second language education. She's a mother of 2 children, ages 4 and 7. She enjoys doing all things creative like baking, crafting, DIYing. You can take a look at some of her work on Instagram under the name Miss Sana Teaches. In her spare time, she creates Islamic content and resources for children in the form of digital printables. You can also find those on her Instagram, and as well as more information. Sana will help us get our kids prepared and excited for Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, inshallah. Thank you so much to the MIA for inviting me here today. As Yasmin mentioned today, I'm going to be talking to you about an exciting topic, 10 ways to engage our kids during Ramadan. And I just want to start off by saying the things that I'm sharing with you today, I'm in no way suggesting that you should do all of these things. I'm just sharing some ideas that have worked with my family, and I'm just hoping that maybe you'll find one thing that resonates with you. So I'm just going to share my presentation here with you. All right. All right, so 10 ways to engage children during Ramadan. So the first suggestion I have is to bring Ramadan to school. So if your kids are anything like mine, they've been waiting for Ramadan for the past 2 months and counting down the days. And so many of our children are really excited about Ramadan, but because of their age, they might not know how to express or share with their classmates and teachers exactly what Ramadan is about. So something I like to do is send a treat, maybe a box of dates or some chocolates, with a note explaining Ramadan to my child's classroom teacher. So here you can see, this is something I do every year, where I fill a lantern that I get from IKEA or from the dollar store with chocolates, or send a box of dates. And I usually send a book that's age appropriate for my child's grade level to the teacher as well. And in doing this, you're doing 2 things. You're providing a book to diversify your child's classroom library, and that might be missing some Muslim voices. But also, your chances are that the teacher might read this book to the children in the class. And so it's just a good way to bring Ramadan into the classroom, especially for children who might not know how to express why this month is so special for us. So my go-to book has been It's Ramadan, Curious George, just because for all kids, this is a character that everyone knows. So it's really relevant to them. And there are plenty of Ramadan books out there right now. So here are a couple of suggestions. And oftentimes, kids' Ramadan books will have a page either at the beginning or at the end of the book that explains what Ramadan is. So for teachers who might not be familiar with Ramadan, there's an explanation there for them. And on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can find where you might find some of these books. So I've suggested some small Muslim businesses that carry these books: Eastern Toy Box for those books, Ruqayya's Bookshelf, and Hayat. But also places like Amazon and Chapters will have books like these as well. But it's always great to support small Muslim businesses first. You'll notice that 2 books on this slide are starred. There's one called Sadiq and the Ramadan Gift, and one called Once Upon an Eid. A lot of Ramadan books are picture books, but these are 2 that I found that are chapter books. And there's not a lot of chapter books out there, so I thought I would point that out. So for your kids who are about 6 to 8, Sadiq and the Ramadan Gift is a great book for them. It's age appropriate. And then Once Upon an Eid is a middle grade book, which means it's great for kids who are 8 to 12 years old. And it's a collection of short stories by 15 diverse Muslim authors. And it shares stories about how different Muslim communities celebrate Ramadan and Eid, and some of the stories of hope that these Muslim authors share through their short stories. My second suggestion is have a designated spot for learning and ibadah. So you might already have a space in your home where that is designated for salah, but creating the space as a go-to place for children just provides some focus and differentiation from the rest of your house. So we have designated spaces to sleep and eat and gather. So it's just as important to have a quiet and chaos-free space to connect with Allah. And during Ramadan, you might be getting your children to do maybe additional activities or learning. So even setting up a small area where they can work, with a chair and a desk or just a comfortable spot on the floor might be helpful, and it'll just help them focus more. Having this designated space sets the tone and sends a message to our children that it's important to make time and space for prayer. And if you make the space, it is likely that your children will use it. Number 3 is have a basket or bin of resources ready. So if your family is like mine, we're super busy. Both parents work till 4 or 4:30, and then our kids are at school. So by the time everyone gets home from school or work, it's about 4 to 5 o'clock. And there's a few hours before iftar that we have to perform our salah, get ready for iftar, do some additional acts of worship. So it's really convenient to have a basket or bin of resources ready for whatever you want them to learn or do in Ramadan, whether that's reading Quran or working on some Ramadan workbooks or learning their Arabic letters. So whatever you want them to do, it's great to just have it in a bin so you're not running around trying to gather things for them to do during the day when they come home from school. And this brings me to my next point. Number 4, set goals with your children. So what is realistic for them to accomplish during Ramadan, keeping in mind that they're at school all day and they might have extracurricular activities. For us, Ramadan, even though it's Ramadan, life still goes on. We still have to go to work. We still have to go to school. So what's realistic for them to do? So set goals with them. Don't tell them that I want you to do this. Maybe make the goals with them. If you do this, they're more likely to accomplish them because they were part of the creation process. So if it is possible, track their progress. And I'm going to show you an example of how you might do this. This could be as simple as having a checklist on the fridge about listing the things you've decided to do and having them check it off. But tracking progress just helps. You're more likely to achieve your goals if you're tracking your progress or you can see the progress. So that's a great idea. So right now I'm going to share a couple of ideas of what these goals might look like for different age groups. And like I said, these are just suggestions and these are things I do with my own children. And they may or may not work for your own family, but I just wanted to give you some ideas. So for 2 to 4-year-olds, for example, you might have them work on their Arabic alphabet, simple du'as, and good deeds, encouraging them to do good deeds. So you can see in the picture here, I have like a workbook that has their Arabic letters, a Play-Doh mat where they're practicing their letters, and maybe you have some games like Ramadan or Arabic alphabet bingo, and you're practicing du'as with them and encouraging them to do good deeds at age 2 to 4. And then when they're a little bit older, 4 to 6-year-old, might be learning their short surahs and du'as, and you're still encouraging them to do good deeds during Ramadan. And maybe you've added a Ramadan activity pack where they're learning about what Ramadan is all about. And then when they get to 7, 10 years old, they might be reading Quran by now, and you want to always encourage them to read Quran as much as they can. But maybe you have a workbook for them, and obviously you're still encouraging them to do good deeds, even at this age. And at this point, I want to share some resources that I found that I'll be using with my children that I found super convenient. So I wanted to point your attention to a website called theazaris.com. So a sheikh in the UK, his name's Salim Azari, he has started a kind of 2 video segments for children, and they're great because they're 30 episode video segments. So the first one that he has is called Names of Allah, and there's 30 episodes. And if you go to this website or if you go on their channel on YouTube, you can find all the episodes there. And so this is great for Ramadan because there's 30 episodes and you can do one each day. And what else is great is that he actually has a workbook that goes along with each episode. So you can see in the upper corner here, there's a Names of Allah workbook. So on their website, if you go to the downloads page, you can download a workbook. After you watch the episode, your kids can fill out the workbook to show their understanding. And it's just super relatable for kids because his kids are in the episodes and they ask questions and talk just as our kids would talk. So it's super relatable for them. And this Ramadan, he's actually coming out with 30 new episodes under a video segment called Juz by Juz Stories. So every day in Ramadan, he's going to share an episode that shares a story from each juz of the Quran. There's a workbook for this as well, but I don't think that it's going to be downloadable, but you can purchase the workbook. It's the orange one that you see on the screen here. And you can find it at easterntoybox.com, which is a stockist, an Islamic store in Toronto, and they'll be selling that if you're interested in that. So I wanted to share that resource because it's something simple you can do each day of Ramadan, where they're learning about the names of Allah and how and also, the Juz by Juz stories. That's something that they're coming out with this Ramadan as well. Something else that I found that I just like the breakdown of 30 stories or 30 activities for 30 days. I just find it super helpful for a busy family. So the story of the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, this is something I found on Amazon. This is 30 stories for 30 nights. And I would suggest this for older children, about 9 years and up. So there's 30 chapters, and so that's basically one for each night of Ramadan. And the chapters are very short; they're about 1 to 3 pages. But in this way, they're learning Sirah. Even though my kids, my oldest is 7, I'm going to be reading this out loud to her and talking her through it. And then here's another example of something that you could use. If you go to Dear Muslim Child on Instagram or on Etsy, she's created 30 letters for your children, and every day you give them this letter, and the letters help them build good habits and build character. So, for example, one day might focus on, today we're not going to waste water when we're making wudu or in general, or today we are going to dress our best before we go for salah, because when we're offering salah, we're going to meet Allah. So these are just some examples of things that I just find super convenient because they're already broken down into 30 chunks. And if you're looking for something where your kids are following an Islamic curriculum, I wanted to point your attention to annasiha.com. An-Nasiha makes curriculum books, and you can see here there's course book 1 to 8. And basically, course book 1 means is kind of like for grade 1 level, and course book 8 is kind of like grade 8 level. But they have a workbook, like a textbook and a workbook for each level here. And there's a Canadian stockist called www.hayat.ca. And if you go there, you can purchase these books, and they're super affordable. So if you're looking for something for your kids to do, not even in Ramadan, but even beyond, where they're following a curriculum, this is something I use with my children. And then the last resource that I wanted to point out, when I was talking about tracking progress, if you go to a website called quotelevin.com and you subscribe to their website, you get access to their free printables. And they have so many great free printables, like this free daily ibadah chart where you can track your kids' prayer and what they're doing. You can they have little stickers where you can add, did they do dhikr today? Did they make dua? There's even a weekly planner. They have, a chart that keeps track of the iftar times, a wudu step-by-step guide. So there's a ton of things on that website that I encourage you to check out as well. Number 5 is make Ramadan feel special. So we already know Ramadan is special. There's nothing we need to add to it. Ramadan in itself for hundreds of years has been special. We increase our worship. We are fasting. There's a great sense of community, more so pre-COVID times. And we're just focused on becoming the best versions of ourselves. And we really feel the difference during this month. But for kids who aren't old enough to fast and don't understand the essence or importance of Ramadan, what can we do to help them understand that this is a special time? So my 4-year-old, for example, doesn't understand the essence of what Ramadan is, but he knows this is a special time and starts asking about Ramadan 2 months before Ramadan arrives. So for my family, what we've done is we create a Ramadan corner for my kids. So we count down until Eid. You can see in these pictures, we have a calendar where we count down till Eid. And in each of the pockets of the calendar, we get them to do a good deed. So every day they have to take out a piece of paper, and it tells them, today you're going to set the table for iftar, for example. So it encourages them to do good deeds, and just making this little corner for them has helped us kind of provide an atmosphere that this is a special time for them. So not every family will need to do this or want to do this, but this is something that's worked for my family, for my kids at a young age. It's really hard to explain what Ramadan is all about when they're so young, but just seeing maybe a little bit of how this is a special month. It's something like this, like creating a little corner where you have like a prayer mat, you have the Ramadan books, and maybe like a calendar where they're counting down. It just helps show them in a visual way that this is a special month. Talk about gratitude. So Dr. Nazar was talking about how gratitude is so important and there's so many benefits to it. There's so many different ways that you could do this, but it's so important for kids to realize and know what they are thankful for. What can we say alhamdulillah for every day? So some ideas I have for this is something I shared last year on this segment, is create an alhamdulillah tree. So you can see in this picture here, we have a tree. You can just get some branches and put it in a vase, and then just cut out some little leaves, and every day the kids have to hang, what's something you're grateful for today. There's also different worksheets like the one you see at the bottom here, or if you go online, there's gratitude journals. Just getting them to think about every day, what are we grateful for? What do we have in our lives that we need to thank Allah for is a great thing to do. Teach generosity. So in Ramadan, it's a fact we're more generous. Generosity is something we can teach to children from a young age. In Ramadan, something that you could do is maybe as a family, pick a charity that you want to donate to, and throughout the month, find different ways to kind of raise money or save money for that charity. So something that I do is we made a simple little box like you see here. And in that calendar that I showed you, sometimes my husband and I will put some money in there. And so sometimes my kids will find money in the calendar, and when they get money, they put it in this box. And at the end of the month, we donate the money to the masjid or whatever charity we decide on. Number 8, send Ramadan treats or iftar to loved ones. Sorry, I should say loved ones. This is something simple that you can get your kids to help with, even especially during COVID times where we've been so separated from our loved ones. Doing a socially distanced drop-off of treats or iftar just sends a message that you're thinking about someone, and it's something easy that you can get your kids involved with. And number 9, keep in touch with family and friends. Another way to keep in touch with family and friends is to send Ramadan and Eid cards to the mail. Another activity, this is just another activity to get your kids to think about other people and to get them to remember their loved ones, their family and friends. And you can find Eid cards easily now. Lots of small Muslim businesses sell them. These ones are available actually on chapters online, but your kids can also make them. So that's just another activity that you can do. And the last suggestion I have is to embrace the learning opportunities. And maybe this is just a teacher in me talking, but I'm always looking for ways to extend learning within the context that I'm in. So for example, in Ramadan, the moon is an important element. It lets us know when Ramadan begins and ends. And my son, who's 4, he associates the crescent moon with Ramadan. So every time he sees the crescent moon in the sky, he thinks it's Ramadan. So basically this year I've printed out a moon phase calendar. So I'm going to be explaining the moon phases to them. So teaching about moon phases or looking for the Ramadan moon or the Eid moon is a great learning opportunity for kids, but it also reinforces that, the greatness of Allah. When we look at nature and aspects of nature, it makes us take a step back and just realize or recognize the vastness of Allah's creation. So this is also something you can do. Also, books like Ramadan Around the World are great in helping our children realize that Muslims are diverse and Muslims come from around the world. And this is one of the beauties of Islam, is that we're so diverse and we come from so many different communities. And a lot of times we know what we do in our own cultures for Ramadan. As a Pakistani Muslim, I know what we eat for iftar, but we often don't know or don't have a lot of experience outside of our own communities. So and this book, for example, it shows Ramadan around the world. What do different Muslims from around the world do during iftar time? So something I'm going to do with my kids is have a map and plot out the different parts of the world that we learn about and what Muslims from different communities do. So just embrace the learning opportunity. There's so much to learn during that you can learn during this month. And I just want to thank you for listening, and I hope that Allah lets us reach the month of Ramadan in good health, inshallah. I hope that sparks some ideas for you. Like I said before, I'm not encouraging everyone to do all of these things, but perhaps there's maybe one thing that resonated with you, which was my goal. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Sana. Next, we have Nida Ghassanfar. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner who works with women throughout North America and the UK. She has been in practice for 2.5 years and is a mom to 2 boys, a 5-year-old and a 7-month-old. She is passionate about good food, nature, and travel. She likes reading books and enjoys spending time with her family and friends. She will help us prepare on how to eat and stay healthy during Ramadan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here. So I'm just going to dive straight in. And before I do, I just wanted to give a quick little disclaimer that whatever I'm sharing here today is very general, generic information that is relevant to most healthy populations, but it doesn't cater to any specific health conditions. So the month of Ramadan is, for so many of us, is all about food, and it should definitely be, but it's also about the quality of that food. So people think that, because they're fasting, they're not eating, they kind of think that they deserve lots and lots of food at the end of it, and they need it. But the truth is that it's also a great opportunity to nourish your soul. And like Dr. Nazir, he alluded to a few benefits of fasting, and I am in complete agreement with those benefits. And there is something called autophagy, where you are literally breaking down your used up really weak cells that are not doing much for you, and they are replaced by healthy cells. So that's a really cool process, I find. And to facilitate that process, we need to have the necessary nutrients. And where do our nutrients come from? They come from the food that we eat. So now it's really important that the two opportunities that we get for food is during sahur and during iftar. So those are the two opportunities that we get to feed ourselves and nourish the body. So when we talk about sahur, I want everyone to keep this word in mind, known as sustenance. So when we're having our sahur, look for what are the foods, select the foods that will sustain you throughout your fast. So when we're choosing what to eat and when we're thinking about what to put on our plate, we need to think in terms of all three of the macronutrients. So what are the macronutrients for those of us that aren't aware with the foundations of nutrition? Well, they're carbohydrates, protein, and healthy fats. So when you're making a plate, you want to have all three of those components in place. So just as an example, my favorite thing is are eggs, because eggs have a combination of healthy fats and protein, and they can keep you going for a very good long time. Another thing that you want to think in terms of sustenance is fiber that comes from carbohydrates, of course. Now, carbohydrates are refined and unrefined, and the type of carbohydrates that we want to choose are the unrefined types, the types that come from the ground, from a tree, something that we can trace back to the earth. And we want to try our best to stay away from the refined versions of carbs that are, very heavily processed and have lots of added sugars. And they're not going to sustain you, because what happens is that every time we eat, our blood sugar levels go up. And how much those blood sugar levels will go up is determined by what we are putting on our plate. So if we have a lot of white refined carbohydrates, then our blood sugar level is going to spike up like this, like a mountain. And that's something that we don't want. What we are aiming for are small waves and small peaks. So if we want to have our blood sugars rise like waves, then we need to be mindful of what we're putting on our plate. So 2 things that I find are really important to be putting on your plate to manage those blood sugar spikes is fiber and healthy fats. These 2 things will manage that spike and give you energy as a result. So when you're choosing carbohydrates, because carbohydrates have the most impact on your blood sugar. So when we're selecting carbohydrates, we want to go for the ones that are high in fiber so that they will keep us satiated for long. So just off the top of my head, I can think of things like oats, for instance. They are great. They have lots of soluble fiber. They will keep you going for a very long time. Of course, they are primarily they're carbohydrates. And what I want to emphasize on is building a plate that has all 3 of the macronutrients. So it's a balanced plate. So what we can add to those carbs are like maybe healthy fats and some protein on the side. So in terms of healthy fats, what are they? So they could be anything like your nuts and seeds, avocados, olives, butter. Those are some of the healthy fats that you can add to your oatmeal to, keep you going further and not cause that spike that I was talking about. So there are just a few things that you can add to it. Something else that I mentioned were eggs. So eggs fall into the category of protein. And they also have some healthy fats in the form of the egg yolk. Egg yolk is mostly fats and the whites are the protein. So I find that they're really like a well-rounded food. And all you need to do is pair it with some like fiber and you're good to go. So those are some of my favorites. And then when you're thinking in terms of sustenance during sahur time, you want to, I have an analogy to share here. Now, camping season is upon us. Hopefully we can do that in these COVID times when the weather gets a little bit better. If you've ever made like a campfire, you'll notice that you use large logs and you also use some twigs to really ignite the fire. So think of carbohydrates like your twigs that ignite the energy within you, and think of healthy fats like those logs that keep you going throughout the day and provide you slow burning energy. So that's kind of the analogy that I like to give when it comes to building your plate and putting in all the components that are there. Some of us don't like to wake up for sahur, and I do want to mention that it's really important that we do wake up and have something, because again, that's an opportunity for us to nourish our body. Now, it's obviously sunnah as well, so that should be enough reason. But if you're somebody who can't have a really heavy meal at that time, I understand it's like in the middle of the night, and a lot of us don't have that appetite. So there are 2 things. One is what you had during iftar, and we're going to talk more about that. But if you did all the right things during iftar, then you should wake up with a good, healthy appetite. But let's say you don't have an appetite and you want something lighter, then there are a lot of lighter options as well. Like you can make a smoothie, making sure like even for something like a smoothie, you want to make sure that all the macronutrients are balanced. So there's enough carbohydrates in there. So what I can think of is maybe you can choose a banana, and there are healthy fats. So I love to add peanut butter as a healthy fat. It also has some protein, so that's a plus. And then you can add like your base like milk that will give you the carbohydrates, or if you can't do dairy, you can do coconut milk, almond milk. There are a lot of replacements for that. And you can add the banana will lend the sweetness, and the peanut butter is there. You can make it chocolate and make it fun. So that's really satiating. If you don't feel like having a full meal, then you can do like a bowl of Greek yogurt. You can add some, frozen fruits in there. You can add some nuts and seeds and make it like a complete meal. You can add in like a tablespoon of almond butter to provide with the healthy fats and keep you going. So those are some of the options for sahur. And obviously you want to be mindful of your hydration as well. So that's a really big challenge, of course, because we have like 15, 16, 17 hours of fasts, and we only have a few hours during that window where we have a chance to replenish our hydration and focus on that. So you want to, as soon as you wake up for your sahur, you want to get as much water in as you can, and you want to make room for water and not other beverages like, juices and a lot of caffeinated drinks. You want to not fill your stomach with those, and ideally choose water, because not only are you going to, the caffeine could mess with your sleep cycles, which is already a little disturbed when we're fasting. And so you want to, try to stay away from it. If you are somebody who drinks like 2 to 3 cups of coffee or chai or tea, then you want to cut back. Now is the perfect time. We still have like a couple of 10 or so days before Ramadan starts. This is a good time to cut back on your caffeine intake and maybe keep it to 1 cup, because caffeine is a diuretic, which means that it causes you to lose water from your body, and so you have to be replenishing that, and that's going to be really challenging for us to do if we're drinking lots of caffeine when we already don't have that opportunity of hydrating ourselves. Now, apart from that, so as soon as you wake up, give yourself some time to get hydrate yourself, drink as much water as possible. Then maybe you can go in and freshen up a little bit, and while you're preparing your food, you can take a couple sips of water while you're preparing everything. And you want to avoid drinking, like ending your fast with a lot of water. So you want to drink the bulk of your water as soon as you wake up rather than towards the end, because then that can cause heaviness and bloating and can cause you to not digest your food properly. So we don't want that. And then you want to focus on hydrating foods as well. So yes, you can drink water and try to reach your aim that way, but also focusing on hydrating fruits and vegetables is a great way to get some water through your food. So some things that I can think of, like fruits, for instance, the pears are like they're kind of in season. They're kind of going out of season, but they're still really readily available. They're really hydrating. Watermelon is going to be in season soon, so watermelon is really hydrating. Cucumbers, celery, strawberries, all of those fruits are really hydrating and will give you not only the water content, but it will also provide you with the electrolytes and a little bit of glucose that will keep you soaring throughout the day. Now, when it comes to your iftar, that's where you want to think in terms of replenishment. So sahur is sustenance and iftar is replenishment. So you want to replenish whatever you have lost. Again, water, you want to drink as soon as you break your fast, you want to drink water, and you want to make sure that you have electrolytes to your water, added to your water. So what are some of my go-to electrolyte drinks are going to be coconut water. Coconut water is so amazing. It has magnesium, potassium, and after a day of fasting, a lot of times people complain of getting headaches and feeling really down in energy levels, and they feel dizzy. And that's where electrolytes are key, because you really want to replenish those electrolytes. And coconut water, I find, is really good. So if you're making a smoothie, instead of adding water, you can add some coconut water, or you can just drink coconut water as is. Water you can add, if you want to make like a electrolyte water, you can add a pinch of salt, some lemon, and you can have that. That way the water kind of stays in your body rather than just drinking large amounts of water and then end up going to the bathroom. And when you go to the bathroom and when you pass your urine, you lose some electrolytes that way as well. So you definitely want to hydrate yourself, but you want to add some type of electrolytes as well. Lemonade is another great option. If you want to sweeten your lemonade, instead of using sugar, you can use natural sweeteners like honey and maple syrup. Or if you want to avoid sugar completely, then you can also use things like, monk fruit sweetener, stevia, for a more diabetic-friendly option. Again, then you want to break your fast with dates. It's sunnah. It's the perfect food to break your fast with. It has potassium, it has magnesium, it has fiber, it has the glucose that you desperately need to get that boost of energy. And another thing that I like to do is take a break. Like after you're done with your water, maybe some fruits, some dates, you go pray your Maghrib namaz, and then you come back and have your meal maybe half an hour to 45 minutes later. That gives your system a little bit time to absorb the water, the fiber from the fruits, and all of those great things. And then when you're having your meal, again, you want to keep keep in mind all three of the macronutrients, the fats, the carbohydrates, and the protein in mind, so that it can sustain you. And you want to limit and portion control your fried food items. So I too am a Pakistani Muslim, so we love our fried foods, and I definitely think that there's a place on the dinner table, on the table, for those foods as well. But you want to portion control them, and maybe have like a day or two in the week where you enjoy these foods in moderation. So after your complete meal, snacking is, I would say, during the later night, I would ideally want you to go to sleep if possible. But if you do feel like the need for a snack, again, keep those same principles in mind, that you want something that has both, like, all three of the macronutrients, or at least two of them. So maybe like an apple with some nut butter, that would be a great way to sustain yourself. But keep in mind that our eating window is going to be shortened as we go on to our, day 30th fast, day 25 fast. So we don't want to be snacking, so that we have a good appetite for sahur. So once again, lastly, I want to say that there are a lot of health issues that people face, like, headaches and the like. So another big and energy slump. So one big thing to focus on is that if you do feel like your energy is draining, which is kind of normal in the first 2 to 3 days, but even after that, if you're having trouble, then I would say that go back and analyze your plate. There's probably some component missing. So if you find that there's a little less protein, add some more protein, preferably animal protein, which will give you that energy and that alertness. And if you're feeling like you're, getting headaches, think in terms of electrolytes. Add some electrolytes. If you're feeling constipated, which is common during the month of Ramadan, think in terms of, healthy fats and fiber. So those are the few things that you can tweak and on your plate, and really, really set yourself up for success, because really Ramadan is a spiritual month, and we need to be praying and worshiping, and there's so many things to do in addition to our day-to-day. We need a lot of energy. We need good food to nourish ourselves, to be able to do all of those things that we are blessed to see this Ramadan. So we really want to focus on our health, and food is so important. Lastly, I would just want to say that the month of Ramadan is just not the abstinence of food. It's also enjoying food with your friends and families. Not so much friends because of COVID, but with family for sure. Jazakallah.
Thank you, Nida. There's a couple questions that I would actually like to direct towards you while you're still here. So you kind of brought up how to replenish your electrolytes with coconut water and the likes. So we have a question in the chat by Nusrat Masood asking, is Gatorade healthy?
So before I tend to reach for Gatorade, I like to look at the ingredients for everything. So Gatorade has a lot of unnecessary food colorings, and which is not always the best. And then obviously it has a little bit more sugar than necessary. So I like to stick to whole foods as much as possible. So we have a wonderful option, which is coconut water, which I feel is really good at replenishing your electrolytes. Obviously there's a time and place for something like Gatorade too, I believe, but whole foods is my go-to always.
Okay, thank you. And then we also have a question for Murshid Amir. He's asking, is meat such as beef a good idea for suhoor?
Yeah, definitely. If it works for you, then why not? Protein from animal sources is great as well. And it, like I said, it provides alertness. It gives you the necessary amino acids. And, if you're exercising as well, then it's really good for muscle development as well. So I think if it works for you, then definitely yes. Just make sure that you're pairing it with other things like, healthy fats and fiber. That's very important.
All right, thank you. I also kind of had a question personally for me. So you mentioned how a lot of people struggle with waking up for suhoor, and I'm definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking you recommended some amazing foods that we could have if we don't like to eat a lot during suhoor, but I'm also wondering what we could do to kind of help prepare the food, because I feel the bigger issue is not that I have to eat, but that I have to get up and then make the food.
Yes.
And any tips on that?
Yeah, sure. So there's this trend going on of overnight oats. So that's really simple to make. You just use couple of tablespoons of oats and soak it in water or milk overnight, and you can add a lot of things and prepare them in mason jars. Chia seed pudding is another great thing that you can make with chia seeds. Chia seeds are great, they're great sources of omega-3s, and they're great sources of fiber and really hydrating for the colon, and they're good for constipation as well. So you can make like a chia seed pudding and top it with some nuts and seeds, and make that in advance and put it in your fridge in mason jars. I'm a really big fan of mason jars, so you can have individual portions ready. You can pre-boil your eggs and have that ready to go, and have that on the go as well. So those are a couple of options. And then smoothies, you can make like pre-packaged smoothie portions for yourselves and just dump everything in a blender, pour your liquid of choice, and then you have that ready to go as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So now we have a question for Dr. Khan. So this is from Osaid, and he's asking, can you get vaccinated while fasting?
Okay, so great question. Jazakallah khair. It's a question a lot of people are asking. And the answer is yes, you can. Receiving a COVID vaccine, will not break your fast. So you have a pretty detailed understanding of what does and does not break the fast from an Islamic jurisprudence standpoint. And scholars have explained that what breaks the fast is anything that provides nutritional support to your body, or any food items going into your digestive tract, basically. So injections into intramuscular injections, subcutaneous injections, receiving medications through injection is not going to break the fast. Now, so it should be clear that if somebody has their COVID vaccine scheduled, they can go ahead with their receiving their vaccine even while they're fasting. They don't need to break the fast or make up a day for it. If somebody is taking a medication, if they're required to take a medication on a day that they're supposed to be fasting, they would break their fast if it's a medication they have to take, and they just make up the day afterwards, after the month of Ramadan.
Okay, thank you. I think you mentioned a lot about the importance of gratitude, both in the Islamic context as well as just recently with some psychological findings on how it makes you maybe happier and perform better. Just my question, what are kind of some ways that we can do that more practically? I know Senna mentioned some wonderful ways to do that with the kids, but how about for everyone else?
Yeah, so fantastic question. The psychologists who have done a lot of research on this, one of them is Dr. Robert Emmons. He's done a lot of research on positive psychology. The way they set up experiments to look at developing gratitude is they ask people to keep a gratitude journal. So what that means is during the course of your day, instead of focusing on all the negatives, focus on all the positives, right? Focus on the positives and write down what are all the things that you're grateful for. For us in the Islamic tradition, we have a lot of these things already, right? So it built into our tradition when we're doing our tasbih, when we're glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every time we say Alhamdulillah, we should be thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, thanking God Almighty for all the blessings that we have. Think about the adhkar, the daily recitations we're saying throughout our day, the daily supplications. These are ways that we can reaffirm our gratitude to God for all of the different things that we have. Before we, take a bite of our food, we're praising God and we're experiencing that gratitude. So the thing that we should focus on is rather than complaining about what we don't have in our lives, we should focus on being grateful for what we do have. And that's a theme that runs throughout the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. God Almighty says, if you tried to count the blessings of Allah, you would never be able to count them. So it's a time for us to really remember and reflect and thank Allah on everything that we have.
Okay, thank you. And just finally, a question to Senna. So you gave us a lot of ways on how we can engage our children in Ramadan. I'm also wondering kind of how we can talk to them about how they can approach their maybe classmates or friends who don't practice Ramadan about Ramadan.
Yeah, so I mean, at school, a lot of us go to school with a lot of diversity. So talking about Ramadan at school when kids are fasting, a lot of kids already know about it. But for younger kids, like I would just go to the teacher and explain to the teacher, for example, providing that book for the teacher. This way the teacher kind of starts the conversation and engages the entire class. Sometimes it's really difficult for children to make that first move or be on the spot. So if you get the help of your teacher, who are most of them, many of them, all of them are really understanding, that could be a first step in how to approach that.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking now to see if there's any more questions, but I don't believe there are. So thank you to all the speakers for taking the time to share their expertise with us tonight. Jazakumullah khairan, and may Allah reward your efforts. Everyone can keep connected with the MIA by visiting our website for all current and detailed information on virtual events. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.